Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we tear through the stack of sources you provided and pull out the absolute biggest, most fascinating nuggets of knowledge. Today, we are tackling a true giant, New York City.
It really is the ultimate city of superlatives. I mean, it's arguably the premier global city, a nexus that kind of sets the tone for the world.
Right. It's the most populous in the U.S.,
Yeah.
Center for Finance, Culture.
All of it. Finance, culture, media, and what's really significant, international diplomacy. You can't forget the UN headquarters is right there.
And it's funny, a place that iconic, we just call it the city,
Yeah.
or the city that never sleeps. But the source material mentioned Gotham. And the nickname wasn't exactly a compliment at first, was it?
No, not at all. Gotham goes all the way back to 1807. The writer Washington Irving came up with it.
The same guy who wrote about the Headless Horseman.
The very same. And he used it satirically, referencing a legendary English village where the people were famously foolish, so it was meant to be pretty unflattering.
And yet, New York being New York, they just sort of absorbed it and made it their own, made it sound powerful. Of course, the Big Apple came later and stuck too.
That's the key to its identity, that ability to redefine itself. And if we're talking scale, the data you gave us from the 2020 census, it's just mind-boggling.
8.8 million people.
8.8 million, and they're packed into just over 300 square miles of land. That makes it by far the most densely populated major city in the entire country.
And that density, that concentration of people, it translates directly into an economic powerhouse.
Exactly. The New York metro area has the world's largest metropolitan economy. The GMP was over $2.16 trillion back in 2022.
Trillion, with a T.
Right. To give you some perspective, if the metro area were its own country, its economy would be bigger than all but 9 countries on the planet. It's a financial force of nature.
So our mission for this deep dive is to figure out how these extremes of size, density, wealth were even possible. We need to dig into the geography, the history that let this thing grow.
Well, the story really starts with European contact.
Okay, where do we begin?
The first documented visit was in 1524. A guy named Giovanni da Verrazzano, sailing for France, he actually named the area Nouvelle Angoulême.
Nouvelle Angoulême. Yeah, I can see why that didn't stick. The sources say the Dutch were the ones who actually set up shop, right?
Correct. The Dutch established Fort Amsterdam in 1624, and then the settlement of New Amsterdam was chartered in 1653. And that brings us to maybe the most famous real estate deal in history.
The purchase of Manhattan. We all heard the story growing up. Peter Minuit buys it for $24 worth of glass beads.
Yeah, that's the legend. And it's a persistent one, but it's been pretty thoroughly disproved.
So what do the source materials say really happened?
The actual transaction was in 1626. It involved goods valued at 60 guilders.
60 guilders. Okay, so what is that in today's money?
When you convert it, using modern purchasing power, it comes out to roughly $900 in 2018 value.
Okay, so still an unbelievable bargain for Manhattan. But it's not just a handful of shiny beads. It changes the narrative.
It changes it significantly. A value of $900 suggests they were trading actual goods of substance tools, metal pots, things that held real value for the local Canarsie people. It wasn't just a hustle.
So we have New Amsterdam. How does it become New York?
The English. They seized it in 1664. King Charles II granted the land to his brother, the Duke of York, and, well, that's where the name comes from. It became permanent in 1674.
And it's easy to forget, New York City was, for a short time, the center of the entire country.
It was. From 1785 to 1790, it was the national capital. It was the last capital under the Articles of Confederation and the very first under the Constitution. George Washington was inaugurated right there at Federal Hall.
Let's jump forward to the modern city. The 1898 consolidation seems like a huge moment.
Oh, it was a defining moment. That's when the 5 boroughs we know today were officially formed: Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx, and Staten Island.
And there's a technical point here for you, the listener, that's actually pretty important. The boroughs are coextensive with counties of New York State.
Precisely. The borough of Queens is geographically the exact same thing as Queens County. It's a key detail for understanding how the city is administered.
And each borough has its own massive scale. Brooklyn's the most populous.
But Queens is the largest geographically. And interestingly, it's the most ethnically diverse county in the entire United States.
And the Bronx is unique too.
Yep. It's the only borough that's mostly on the U.S. mainland. Staten Island, on the other hand, is the most suburban, sometimes called the borough of parks.
Okay, so this structure helped manage the growth, but I've always wondered about the skyscrapers. Why are they all clustered in Manhattan? Why didn't they just keep building them out across Brooklyn?
That comes down to deep geology. It's a fascinating part of the story. The location at the mouth of the Hudson River gave it a perfect natural harbor, which was key for trade.
But not for building up.
Not directly. The ability to build those massive towers, 80 stories high, is all about what's underneath the soil. Manhattan schist.
The bedrock.
The famous bedrock, the last ice age, the Wisconsin glaciation, basically scraped the island clean and left this incredibly solid rock just a little bit below the surface.
And that can hold the weight.
It can bear the immense weight, and this explains what people call the Manhattan skyscraper sandwich effect.
The what?
The sandwich effect. If you look at the skyline, you see huge clusters of super talls downtown and in midtown, but fewer of them in between around Greenwich Village.
Why is that?
Because in those areas, the bedrock actually dips much deeper underground, and trying to build foundations that deep is, well, it's exponentially more expensive. The geology literally shaped the skyline.
Which brings us to the human side of this. This physical landscape is home to just an incredible human mosaic. The diversity numbers you found they're off the charts.
They're globally unparalleled. New York is considered the most linguistically diverse city in the world. They estimate 800 languages are spoken there.
800. How does a city even operate like that?
With a very complex, self-organizing social infrastructure. I mean, think about it. Official city services, schools, hospitals, they have to provide translation in dozens of languages just to function.
And the foreign-born population is huge.
The largest in the world. The metro area has 5.9 million foreign-born residents as of 2023.
And when you look at specific groups, the concentration is just as extreme.
Absolutely. The city has over 1.2 million Asian Americans. That's more than San Francisco and Los Angeles combined. And Manhattan's Chinatown has the highest concentration of Chinese people in the Western Hemisphere.
The sources also point to major records for religious populations.
They do. New York has the largest total Jewish population of any city in the world, about 960,000 people. And the greater metro area has the largest Muslim population in the Western Hemisphere, around 1.5 million.
All that density, that diversity, it becomes a cultural engine. It's constantly creating new things.
It's a superpower. New York is the birthplace of these huge global movements. You have the Harlem Renaissance, this incredible explosion of Black cultural and artistic creativity. Then, after World War II, you get abstract expressionism.
The New York School.
Exactly. It literally shifted the center of the art world from Paris to Manhattan.
And of course, you can't talk about New York culture without mentioning hip-hop.
No way. And you can pinpoint its origin, the Bronx, in the 1970s. Specifically, a back-to-school party thrown by DJ Kool Herc.
Yeah.
From one party in the Bronx to a global multi-billion-dollar force.
It's also foundational for pivotal social movements, especially in LGBTQ plus history.
Absolutely foundational. The 1969 Stonewall riots in Greenwich Village, that's widely seen as the start of the modern LGBTQ plus rights movement.
And today?
Today, the city hosts the largest pride parade in the world and is home to the world's largest transgender population.
The sources also had this great detail about the classic New York accent.
The non-rhotic dialect, or Brooklynese.
What does non-rhotic mean, exactly?
It just means that car tends to disappear at the end of a syllable. So car becomes ka, or coffee sounds more like coffee.
It is a very specific rhythm.
It really does. But here's the interesting thing. That classic accent is actually becoming much less common. Because of so much immigration and media influence, that linguistic marker of old New York is starting to fade.
So let's tie this back to that extreme density. Manhattan alone has over 70,000 residents per square mile. That's the highest of any county in the U.S. That kind of compression must affect everything.
It does. And that compression brings us right to the economic and infrastructural engine that's needed to manage this colossal scale.
Okay, let's talk money. New York is the world's premier financial center, Wall Street.
Wall Street is the nerve center. It's home to the New York Stock Exchange and the NASDAQ, the two largest stock exchanges on the planet by market cap. And the physical footprint is just staggering. Midtown Manhattan alone is the world's largest central business district.
500 million square feet of office space.
It's hard to even picture. And when you talk about extremes of wealth, the numbers are just as stunning.
Right. Billionaires.
By a pretty significant margin, New York has the most billionaires in the world. We're talking 110 individuals as of 2025. And you see that wealth on display. Fifth Avenue is the world's most expensive shopping street.
But on the flip side, what does it cost for a normal person to just live there?
A fortune. The data from 2025 lists it as the most expensive city in the world for expatriates. It has the highest residential rents in the U.S. That economic pressure is relentless.
So if space and money are that tight, how do 8.8 million people get around? This seems like the city's biggest challenge.
And it's where it differs most from the rest of the country. Nationally, 91% of people drive to work?
Something like that, yeah.
In New York, more than half of commuters use mass transit. And here is the statistic that just blows my mind. It's the only major American city where most households, 52%, do not own a car.
So the transit system isn't an option, it's a lifeline.
It's an absolute necessity. The subway has to run 204/7. And it's the largest system in the world by number of stations, 472 of them. Then you have hubs like Grand Central Terminal, the world's largest train station by number of platforms.
And the sources mentioned the Port Authority bus terminal as another pressure point.
A logistical pressure cooker is more like it. It's the busiest bus station in the world. It was built in the 1950s for 60,000 passengers a day.
And now?
Now it serves about 250,000 passengers on 7,000 buses every single workday.
250,000 people are using a facility designed for 60,000.
And that's why it's constantly under construction and often criticized. It's a perfect example of the infrastructural strain the city is under every day.
And even with all that public transit, if you do drive, the congestion is still terrible.
It's the worst in the world, actually. The average driver there spends 101 hours a year just sitting still in traffic. That's over 4 full days.
Which led to that huge policy change.
Yeah.
Congestion pricing.
A very controversial, but probably necessary move. It started in January 2025. Basically, you get charged a fee to drive into the busiest parts of Manhattan.
And the goal is to push more people onto public transit.
Right. Reduce traffic, cut emissions, and crucially raise money to improve that very same transit system.
The city's whole history is about responding to these massive shocks, from riots in the 1800s to modern disasters. We have to talk about 9/11.
Of course. The attacks led to the loss of 2,753 lives at the World Trade Center. It was a trauma that forced this immense period of rebuilding, both physically and psychologically, that completely reshaped Lower Manhattan.
And then more recently, Hurricane Sandy in 2012 was a different kind of shock. An environmental one.
A huge wake-up call. Sandy caused something like $19 billion in economic losses in the city. The subway was shut down for days. The stock exchange closed. That kind of event makes a city question its own survival.
And it spurred massive rebuilding and, more importantly, resiliency efforts.
It had to. The long-term damage from Sandy, especially to the tunnels, forced the city to start investing billions into preparing for climate change and rising sea levels.
Before we get to that, there's one last factoid about the city's environment that I love. The drinking water.
It's legendary, right? New York City's drinking water is so pure it doesn't even require filtration for most of the supply.
Where does it come from?
It's piped in from the protected Catskill Mountains watershed. It's a huge natural advantage for a city with such density.
So let's bring it all together. We said New York is defined by extremes. You have history meeting geology to create this foundation for insane density, a place where 800 languages are spoken, where incredible wealth depends on this 247 constantly overwhelmed infrastructure.
And its identity is one of constant reinvention, usually forced by a crisis. The 1898 consolidation was a response to chaos. Post 9/11 was about rebuilding commerce and spirit, and now the city is facing this existential threat of climate change.
Its vulnerability as an oceanic port city is extreme, but its response seems to be just as extreme.
It is. The city has received $15 billion in federal funding just for coastal protection and resilience projects. You're talking massive seawalls, barrier systems. It's reaffirming its identity as a city that is engineered for the future.
And that's the thought we'll leave you with. A city built on a shallow slab of ancient rock, constantly engineering itself, not just up with skyscrapers, but out against the forces of nature. The real question is, can this massive, dense system continue to engineer its own survival against the relentless sea? Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into New York City.